today from where I've been last week. I'm just above the bit where they filmed a lot of the scenes from The Boys. So if you're a big fan of The Boys, um, I'm there. It's still dark, and I haven't quite worked out how to turn this light on here. So apologies for that. But skyscrapers behind me. That's nice. Obviously not back in the UK yet. I will be back in the UK on Wednesday. If anyone wants to come meet up, you'd be very welcome to do so. I didn't actually press anything to get started this morning. It just started, so I don't even know if this is going out. I've got a thumb up though, so if anyone's watching this, please just let me know in the chat. Just say good morning, so we know that I'm actually not just talking to myself. Which, nothing new there, but still, you don't want to be going mad in someone else's flat. I'm staying with friends here in Toronto. Today we're going to be talking about fighting back against. Oh, hello, Ian. Ian's there. Hi, Ian. Hi, Sparks. How you doing? And specifically, I wanted to talk about this idea that we've mentioned a few times on the show already, but this idea of creating a network, a think tank, like what the right do. And I'll give some examples of how the right do this kind of thing. So the right tend not to bother. Thank you very much to Jeannie saying good afternoon. Paul saying hi from storm hit Aberdaron in, probably said that wrong, sorry, in Northwest Wales. And Jeannie saying hi everyone. Hello. So we were talking about think tanks and how the right successfully use think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, like the Federalist Society, like the 55 Tufton Street bullshit artists, the Institute for Economic Affairs, the what's it called, the Civitas, the Taxpayers Alliance, LGB Alliance, these bullshit think tanks. But what these think tanks do very, very successfully is they set the agenda of what everyone's talking about. So they've set the narrative, and then we on the left are left reacting to their narrative. And also they really, really successfully lobby politicians, both sides of the pond, all over the world. They commission reports into whatever bullshit they want to put to an MP, and then they present that report. It's all nice and shiny and a little brochure, it's all paid for, and that's given to the MP, and it's all in language that an MP could understand. No offense to MPs, but any MP could understand. And they flick through it and they go, oh yeah, hydrogen does sound like a really good sustainable way of powering the future of our cars, because it says so in here. Those think tanks are paid for by fossil fuel companies who want us to keep burning fossil fuels till the heat death of the universe, because that's how they make all their money. They want to keep the status quo. They are the true conservatives. The status quo being they're really rich and you're not. We need to learn from this, because on the left we go, okay, what are we going to do to fight against Brexit? I'll tell you what, we'll organise a march, we'll organise a rally, we'll organise an event, we'll have an event, or we'll do a petition, because petitions work, don't they? And petitions can work, but only when hand in hand with this kind of lobbying effort that the left don't seem to want to make. The left will rather do a stunt. So you'd have Just Stop Oil doing a stunt, or Extinction Rebellion doing a stunt to get in the news. And you think, well, okay, well, they got in the news, they highlighted that issue. I hope they didn't piss off more people than they, got on side. But at the same time, I'm like, the right do this so much smarter, because they make a list of all the MPs who might be on side, and they target them. Also, they're brilliant at spreading disinformation, and we need to counter that. We've got enough people, we've got enough willing participants, in the same way that Wikipedia has the same number of willing participants to just help out a little bit. I'm not asking people to do a full-time freaking job for nothing, but once a day, just doing a little bit with a semi-autonomous response network that's helped with AI, and you don't have to spend much time on it. You just copy and paste the response to some bullshit article in a newspaper, or some bullshit tweet, or Blue Sky, whatever, what thread on Blue Sky. But helping out in that way, we have the something that the right don't have, because all the right have got is AstroTurf. They don't really have any grassroots supporters trying to do stuff. Another thing that we're quite strong with as well is, our sense of moral duty. there's a sense of justice, and how much it enrages us when people get away with murder, literally. Unless that murder happens to be someone that we don't like, and then, oh well. Yeah, one of the things that the right are very good at is splitting the left. And we talked about this the other day. Islamophobia, transphobia, anti-Semitism, these are very effective ways of splitting the left. We need to identify ways of splitting the right. So I'll give you an example. Fox hunting, right? Half the people who write to MPs going on about immigrants, going on about how much they hate foreigners, whatever. Britain's not Britain anymore, even though the first curry house opened 50 years before the first fish and chip shop, which was probably opened up by someone who was Chinese. But I digress. One of the things that they often do when they write to MPs, and I've spoken to MPs about this, and they joke about it. They'll go on and on about how bad immigrants are, and then at the bottom they'll say, "Oh, I love animals. Oh, cats, dogs. But we need to do more to protect dogs from bad owners, or protect cats from being whatever." And it does seem like Britain is, and not just a cliche, it is a nation of animal lovers. That is a dead cert way of splitting the right, because you're going to have some right-wing people who like fox hunting and some right-wing people who don't like fox hunting. So use that as your culture war. Why aren't we talking about that? Rather than which bathrooms we're allowed to use when we go out, how about we talk about something that enrages half of the right and sets them against someone like Nigel Farage, who was on Question Time again for the 38th time last week. 38th time. It's beyond infuriating. But we also need a think tank. A think tank's the best way of describing it. And I always thought like think tanks are bullshit, and they are. Don't get me wrong. Think tanks are just total bullshit. But the right use them very, very effectively. We see this every day in our politics. We see this when the Labour government go, "Oh yeah, we need to have carbon capture technology." That technology that's never worked ever in the history of the world. But you just keep spending that money on those perpetual motion machines, as long as you don't have to really do anything about the environment. I mean, that's what's the goal. The goal is to ensure that the right don't dominate the narrative like they do at the moment, to stop them from doing that. Or at least put some roadblocks in the way, because they own all the big newspapers. They own the Spectator, they own LBC, they own the Tory party, obviously, and Refug. They have so much power over the means of communication. If you think about Musk or Zuckerberg, who own the social media networks, it's up to them what's on those networks. They get to decide, we don't. And the right are very good at using those networks. We saw this with Cambridge Analytica. We saw this with Musk in the run-up to the general election in America last month. They're very good at making the most out of misinformation and disinformation. So fighting the bullshit, fighting the right-wing bullshit, which somebody's got to do. At the moment, we're all expected to do it for free for some reason. We're all expected to just chip in where we can, and it's pathetic. It is like the Nazi war machine on one side and Dad's army on the other, and we're Dad's army. We're just some plucky volunteers who don't really know what they're doing. We need to professionalize. We need to make sure that we know exactly what we need to do and the way to do it. Identify our goals, as you were saying, and have a plan to achieve every one of them. The response network, sorry, kick the tripod there. The response network, to me, that would be an absolute gem of a thing to have, an automated response network. And how does it work? Well, we just basically have a website, and it automatically generates the stories. Well, it doesn't generate stories. It refers to stories that are in the news that are bullshit, because there's only 5 of them. They just keep going round and round and round. It's always to do with immigrants. It's always to do with trans people. It's always to do with single mothers on benefits. There's only a few stories that just get told time and time again. They just change their names in these rag newspapers and bullshit rags like the Scum newspaper and the Mail, Express, Telegraph. Oh my God, what a joke of a newspaper that Telegraph thing is. Having a network of people, emanating out from this think tank that can actually counter that. When I talk to people like Abby Heffer or Zoe Gardner or Patsy Stevenson, they often talk about wanting to be able to do reports and present them to MPs, commission reports, get some data, get some information together about the reality of things like, for example, shelter have proven time and time again that it is cheaper to take people off the streets and give them somewhere to live than to leave them on the streets. The reason for this is if you're on the streets, you tend to use up more emergency services, use more of the NHS, use more of the police time, and that adds up to more than whatever it would be to put people in accommodation. So there's £5,000 to put someone in accommodation for a year, and they're going to spend 20 grand living on the streets just by dint of being in the A&E on a Friday night, X many times in a week, X many times in a year. Sorry. So I mean, those factors, those things like obviously Shelter do their own effort to try and get this under the nose of politicians. But they're a charity, their first and foremost thing is helping people who are on the streets. We should be the wing of, not necessarily Shelter, but any kind of progressive organization who is going into Parliament every day, getting into the lobby hall, having someone there holding this information and putting it in the hands of MPs that we know might be friendly, might be on side, or even ones that might not be on side, but just, the war of attrition, just to grind them down to a point where they go, okay, we'll read the fucking report then. Right. So it's the models thing to do and it's the economic thing to do. Oh my God. Maybe we should think about, I don't know, housing people who are homeless. There should be no homeless. There should be no refugees. We should be in a world now, especially in 2024. God, how that didn't work out. But I mean, we should be in a world now where there are no refugees because there's no one fleeing persecution. Unfortunately, we're not. The best way to stop refugees from coming over the border and getting into small boats and blah, is to support countries to transition to safe, stable places where people don't feel a fear for their life from the government or the dark forces that are swirling around them. And in order to do that, we could do without things like American evangelicals going over to Uganda and telling people in Uganda that they should make the homosexuality punishable by death. That would be nice. Maybe we should stop doing that, or at least highlight it and say this is wrong. Uganda, can you stop giving visas to these people? Then they're destabilizing your country. Not to tell Uganda what to do, but gently encourage them to have a think about whether they're being played or not by various forces. And it's always the same lot. It's always the same evangelical, Heritage Foundation, Tufton Street. They're all linked in with each other, which is hilarious when people try and make links between what we do on this channel, and Phil and Supertansky, Carol Vorderman. And it's like, yeah, we work together. We don't get paid much for it, but we do work together. You've solved the puzzle. You clever person. But yeah, so how we fight back going forward, we have a couple of aces up our sleeves. We've got some really talented people who are making content at the moment. Fun fact, if you are unfortunate enough to watch the Rees-Mogg documentary, Rees-Mogg, yeah, meet the Moggs, the hills have monocles. There's a clip on the show of Supertansky reacting to the election win earlier in the year on the Mogg show, and I hope that made Rees-Mogg cry, tears of blood. But yeah, so anyway, I digress. So when it comes to fighting back, we have some really, really talented, funny, charismatic people who have the riz, who can get the message out in an effective and entertaining way, which is really important. We can't just have people reading from lists and expecting people to react to that in a positive way. We've got to have characters, and I get that. The other thing we've got is a Labour government, and Labour are going to be, just by dint of being Labour, they're going to be more responsive than the Tories ever were to any of our left-wing things that we want them to do. And Labour are I mean, I think they have an overabundance of caution. And I think this is something that happened in 1997 when Labour did, they did change a lot of things. It was the national wage, the national minimum wage, but also like there was a feeling that they could have done more. There was a feeling that, especially with things like public transportation, the trains had only just become privatised in previous few years. Labour had 13 years in charge, and that was the bulk of the time that trains were privatised. And they were privatised in 1994 by Major, and then we have 3 years under the Tory government, and then it was Labour for 13 years. They could have done away with that privatisation system because it clearly wasn't working from the start. Like going to the train station in Liverpool, Virgin Trains, and you say how much is it to London, like 70 quid. £70 to London, and this was back in 1997. It was like £70 was what you would earn in 2 days of working, and it was just like, what? How is it so expensive? So yeah, we have those sort of aces up our sleeves at the moment, because a lot of Labour MPs, and we can slag off the party as much as you like, and Keir Starmer if you want, whatever floats your goat. But the actual members of the party, the MPs, the members of Parliament, I should say, not just members of the party, but also the members of the party as well, tend to be just the people who want to help. They're the people who, when you feel not so good, they're the people who say, hey, can I get you something? Can I get you some lemon sip? Can I get you, or more unhelpfully, they'll list a bunch of natural remedies that work for them. But it's a bit of a faff for you to get hold of some ginseng when you're in bed. It's not coming out your face at 2 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, I digress. They're not the people who go, oh, don't give it to me. They tend not to be though. They tend to be more socially concerned about what is happening in society, and they want the best for people, generally speaking. Maybe there's some evil Labour MPs, but there's not as many evil Labour MPs as there are evil Tory MPs, because the Tories are just evil. They're just evil. Right. Think tanks are the manipulators of the unthinking, says David. Yeah, and we need to fight fire with fire on this one, I'm afraid, because they're doing a very good job of it. We need to make people think. Let's do a think tank that makes people think. Greetings from New York. Oh, hi, Colin. Over the border. Hi, I'm waving to New York. I'm not far from New York. Hi, Jeannie Bottle. Afternoon, all. Hope all is well. Hello from France. From Jan. Hello. Wow, everyone's feeling very international today. Durham is looking very well developed nowadays. I know. They closed the coal mines, and that made there's a big tech boom as a result. You're in Toronto. Yes, I'm in Toronto. On to Tonto, pronto. Toronto. He'll never see a Stanley Cup that way. Truth loses. A Stanley Cup, you mean the competition, or like a big cup that you drink out of? Truth loses out if lies are believed more. Organised and centralised, privatised. Just call me Private Pike. Sarah says hi. Hi, Sarah. This could be a think tank. Have you ever seen a left or right think tank? Well, there are loads of right-wing think tanks. There's about 17 of them registered in 55 Tustin Street. Also, registered as charities. I'm going to add that to my list because I need to remember to. We're having a meeting about this at some point soon. Charity, because it's a charity. It's a charity, you know. The Taxpayers Alliance. It's actually. I know the LGB Alliance is a charity, which just blows my mind. It's just a transphobic organisation with no lesbian, gay, or bisexual people in it, and they call themselves the LGB Alliance. It is just weird. It is like you had an organisation called Black People for Slavery 150 years ago, and it's all the people in it are white, and you're like, okay, not really seeing this one. Not really seeing this one. Home is where the heart is. So I keep missing your live streams, Game. I hope you're well. From Megan Elise. Oh, hello. How you doing? We'll get Megan on the show at some point. Again, there is a new app or similar app to Alexa where you can have a conversation about whatever the AI installed on it. Seems to be a slippery slope, sleepwalking people into isolation. Yeah, money is the order of the day. Indeed. So the idea would be, you know, these right-wing think tanks are all paid for by the oil companies. We'll have to do it crowdfunding. We would. I mean, the idea that some wealthy millionaire or even billionaire is going to come and give us money to actually forward progressive ideals in a targeted way that might actually result in an outcome that's positive. is for the birds. I mean, the rich are rich for a reason. Yeah. They don't like spending their money, generally speaking. I know there's a few that are all right, but unicorns. So a more practical idea is by having 10,000 people who are happy to pay £10 a month towards the think tank, towards the foundation, and that would pay for everything. You know, we'd have 10 people working full time, and yeah, that would be the way that we would do it, and be really transparent about it and saying this is our subscriber model, it's our subscriber base, this is what we do with the money. At the moment, you see a lot of these sort of foundation's a bad word for it, but these groups where they'll spend money on like having a whining and dining evening, and I'm just like, what the hell? Really? You're gonna buy wine with people's money? Why would you do that? I just think that's really weird. They have to have a launch party. You're gonna have a launch, darling. You're gonna launch. Oh, they wanted to launch when I started doing Labour Social. Like, we should have a launch. We have a launch party and we get all these people together. I'm not using people's money who've chipped into the channel. I'm not using their money to buy wine for rich people who have enough money already and have enough wine already. It just blows my mind why anyone would do that. But yeah, politicians seem to go for that kind of thing, unfortunately. There's an opening, there's a launch, there's a soft launch, there's an opening. I'd rather just get down and say, right, this is what we're going to spend the money on. And make it really obvious, just say, look, we need this, that, and the other. And we also need to pay ourselves a decent wage for doing this, because otherwise the people who are incredibly talented and charismatic and clever and really on top of all this stuff, they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to just go, I can't afford to pay for feeding the bloody cats. I can't afford to, never mind have a family or get a mortgage on a house. And so we're going to lose them. We're going to lose them. And these people, we need to keep them. We need to keep them because they're few and far between. Alistair, thank you very much. The first tenner to start things going. Oh, thank you very much, Alistair. And also we've got I'm an angry pagan. Thank you very much. We must unite around Brock and his woodland mates. Yes, indeed. I'm going to put politics social in my will. Oh, Sarah, that's lovely, but you don't need to. Seriously, that's going a bit far. But yeah, we will. Thank you. But we will be looking to get this off the ground next year, possibly in the new year, and get all of the people, not just the people who watch this channel, but people who watch Phil and Tansky and Aid and all of our other friends, get all those people together to say, look, we really need your help to fight the misinformation that's out there, and it's going to become more crucial than ever next year, because you know what's coming. I know what's coming. We all know what's coming. The Orange Menace. I mean, this guy who's going to, he still wants to lock up his enemies. And you know what happens when someone that Trump doesn't like anymore, former friend, former Bezzy, goes to jail for, I don't know, being a massive nonce and might know things about Trump, flying on his Lolita Express dozens of times and going to his private island and sexually assaulting underage women. You know what he does to them, don't you, in jail? This is what Trump does. He's done it to his friend. He did it to his Bezzy, Jeffrey Epstein. He'll do it to Liz Cheney. He'll do it to AOC. He'll do it to Biden, Hunter Biden. I said it last week, and the reason why Biden has got his kid out of jail is because if the kid's in jail when Trump's in charge, then Trump's going to have him killed. I wouldn't be surprised to see Biden, his son, a lot of the Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi leaving the country next month. I think that would be mad not to, because Trump is going to have more power than any human being has ever had ever before in the world. And we need to fight back. We need to fight back effectively. And complaining about stuff, although it's cathartic and saying, isn't this a bit shit, it's not enough. We need to do more. We need to make sure that we are actually fighting this menace in an effective way. And it's not just Trump, it's also climate change, which is getting to an insane crisis point. We had a red weather warning, as we all know, across the UK, or mainly Wales, on last week on Saturday, and it's because of climate change that we're having these mad storms that we never used to have before, and we're going to have more damage, more carnage, more people are going to die, and we need to make it so this is as bad as it gets, because otherwise it's just going to keep getting worse. It's like there's a bath filling up with CO2, and we need to turn the taps off. And the best we can hope for at the moment is turning the tap down a little tiny bit, and we're not even doing that. In my lifetime, 75% of all CO2 that's gone into the atmosphere has gone into the atmosphere in the last 45 years. In my lifetime. 75%. As other countries have come online and started having everyone having a car and burning fuel every day, just burning it. And we're going to burn the planet. There's all that fossil fuel that was safely locked away for millions of years, and then we decided to dig it up and burn it. A bunch of dickheads. Right, what else have we got in the chat? Labour waking up to the existence of the threat would be helpful. Yes, the constant whining needs to stop because it's just bringing everyone down, says Duke Vengeance. Well, I mean, look, constant whining, I mean, it's cathartic to have a complaint about what's happening in the world, because otherwise, I'll go mad. But at the same time, I feel like we need to be targeted in the way that we respond to this threat, and we can take cues from the right. That's all I'm saying, True progressives should be putting forward possible solutions, not just constantly pointing out the problems. I spent a whole 10-minute long video on the channel, on One Angry Penguin's channel, ranting about this. Yes, absolutely. And I always feel like this. I always, I'm going to wrap up soon, by the way. I'm going to do a short show today. It's only going to be half an hour. Back in the turn of the millennium, we would have these May Day riots where people would come from all over the country down to London and terrorize the staff of McDonald's. And it only lasted a few years. And I know a couple of people who went, so I can't be too disparaging, but it came across to people like me that there were a lot of toffs in the groups that were going to London. They were kind of spoiling for a fight. And who were they terrorizing? Not the CEOs, not the healthcare CEOs, not the people running ExxonMobil and Royal Dutch Shell and BP, which apparently since the early 90s has stood for Beyond Petroleum. How's that going? Is that your mission statement? Is it like in Jerry Maguire, you got to go beyond petroleum, BP? You burnt more petrol last year than you have ever in the history of your company, but I'm sure you get beyond petroleum at some point. Jesus. But yeah, I always just think it was a bit of a, it was a fundamentally unhelpful thing for people on the left to do. It did come across as a bunch of entitled people going to London and terrorizing the people who worked at McDonald's for minimum wage in central London. Generally speaking, people who might not even be from this country. Something that the right might do, go and terrorize some immigrants who are just trying to get on with their job, make them have to do extra work, make them close down for the day. It didn't, to me, in the history of ineffective protests. But what also bothered me was that people were there with signs, effectively, the Father Ted joke, down with this kind of thing. It was anti-capitalism. I was like, okay, you anti-capitalists, what's the plan? What are you going to replace it with? And to be honest with you, to be quite frank, just you watching this, some of the PR campaigners annoy me in the same way for saying we need to stop the first past the post system. And I say, okay, let's talk what system we can have instead. Oh, no, we need to just get rid of this. I'm like, no, we need to have something positive. We need to show what we're going to replace capitalism with. We have to show what we're going to replace first past the post with and sell that to people and say, this is what we need to do. This will make things better. Looking for possible solutions, discussing solutions, I think, to these problems is absolutely critical, and it does annoy me a little bit, even though I probably do it myself now and again, when people just complain about stuff without actually saying, hey, here's what we could do instead. So, for instance, the EU, obviously, as a huge, I've stamp me card in terms of like a card carrying pro-EU activist over the years. And yeah, I understand that we have to be practical about how we get back into the EU and how long it's going to take, and be realistic about that. But put things in place. So, a left-wing think tank would be really useful for presenting reports about the damage that Brexit is doing and presenting ideas to the Labour government, which don't step on their red lines, but also, but at the same time brings us closer to Europe. Rejoining Erasmus would be a really obvious one. Having some kind of outer orbit of the single market that we can join, along with Ukraine, Moldova, and Serbia, and Albania, and other countries that want to join the EU, but aren't quite there yet. David Faulkner, thank you very much for the 38 Hong Kong dollars. Here's my contribution. Graham, all the way from windy Chongqing in Sichuan. Is it Sichuan? Sichuan province in China. Wow, that's pretty cool. Identifying problems is part of the solution process, but annoying if solutions are conclusions. Assad is done. He is, yes. So, obviously big news over the weekend. President Assad has fled Serbia. He's now got asylum. He's living as an asylum seeker. How ironic. The maker of 1 million asylum seekers is now an asylum seeker. And he's staying with the guy who basically wanted loads of asylum seekers to flood into Europe because he knew that it would cause destabilization and the rise of demagogues, and demagogues are shit at running governments. You've got to think about how Putin thinks, right? He can't invade Western Europe. He can't. He hasn't got the manpower, person power. He hasn't got the armaments. He hasn't got the munitions. He hasn't got shit, right? He can't do that. He hasn't got the nuclear weapons, I don't believe. So what can he do? He can do this thing that has been effective time and time again, which is to get people who are right-wing in power. How do you get people who are right-wing in power? Flood countries with the refugees. And people will react by saying, I don't like these foreign people here, they're not speaking my language. They'll react with fear, and fear drives them to vote right-wing. I mean, it's a big driver, isn't it? Greed and fear is right-wing, and empathy and love and respect is your left-wing stuff, generally speaking. I know that's not across the board, but so you create refugees, and it makes a society more right-wing, and so they vote for more right-wing people. And the thing that Putin knows, and most political observers know, is that most people who are right-wing, who get into parliament or get into government, are thick as fuck, or they're just incompetent. The incompetence level of people on the right is a lot higher than the incompetence level of people on the left. It just is. It just, I used the wrong hands there, didn't I? I don't know if this is reversed or not. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Name any alternative bar dictatorship that's worse than first past the post. Well, I mean, I can't. Like, first past the post is crap. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that if you're going to tell people that it needs to be replaced, you need to tell them what you're going to replace it with. Is it going to be single transferable vote? Is it going to be the D'Hondt system? Is it going to be, present it? And the Scottish Parliament have their own system. I mean, the London mayoral vote used to be single transferable vote. You ranked voting, sorry, where you vote 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't understand why we can't have that for our general elections. It would make so much more sense. You talk to MPs, they talk about they want to have a constituency link. This is why first past the post is important. Fine, have an area, and we've already got this because we've got unitary authorities, we've got counties. We have an area, and that entire area votes for a pool of MPs. And so you might be in Derby, and you might have 5 MPs representing Derby. I don't know how many it is. But or Liverpool's a better example. So there's 5 MPs in the metropolitan area of Liverpool. There's 5 MPs. So you might get, through proportional representation, instead of 5 Labour MPs, which is what you get at the moment, always, you might get a Lib Dem, or you might get a Tory MP. I wouldn't want a Tory MP in Liverpool, but what would happen is people in Liverpool would write to the MP that they feel would best represent them or best respond to them. So if they are a Conservative voter, they're much more likely to vote for right to their Conservative MP, who is, and that keeps the constituency link. I mean, it's over a wider area. Constituencies would have X many MPs, making up what, the old constituencies, but it would allow you to write to MPs that, at the moment you can only write to your MP about anything, which is a bit frustrating for a lot of people if they have a Tory MP who doesn't give a shit. So having that option to write to a different MP from a different party on the same policy, on the same thing, and get them to bring it up in Parliament rather than the Tory, I think would be a good idea. So, idea. Drinks on Wednesday, that's from Russell Cannon. Oh, thank you very much, Russell. That's very kind of you. Yes, Wednesday. So I'm going to wrap up in a moment because I've been yakking on for over half an hour. So Wednesday at lunchtime, 12 o'clock, we're meeting by Euston Station. If you, thanks very much for the super chat there, Russell. If you want to come along, I'm putting information about it on I'll put it on Patreon and also on to the YouTube membership thing. So if you're a YouTube member, you'll get a message about that. But yeah, if you want to come along at 12 o'clock till 2 o'clock, we'll be around the Euston area and we're just going to the pub. We're going to the pub. There's nothing fancy about this. It's not a launch. There's going to be no free wine. There's going to be no finger food, I'm afraid. It's just me and Aid are meeting up, and if any of you lot would like to come and see us, that'd be great. I'm sorry people who don't live anywhere near London. I don't live anywhere near London, to be fair. It's just that I'm going through London on the way home from here, from Toronto. And the police are on to me. I don't know if you know that. We're very high up here, by the way. Do you want to see how high up we are? Come on, come with me, and you will see. I should just take this off here. This is how high up we are. Get a bit funny about heights. I never understand, like, people go, phobias, and I'm like, yeah, okay, there's some phobias that are a bit mad, like fear of clowns, but fear of heights, that makes sense. Heights can kill you. Fear of spiders can kill you. Fear of snakes can kill you. Fearing them is the sensible option, indeed. So anyway, I'll be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock my time, so 1 o'clock your time, and for another quick chat. And until then, thank you very much for watching. If you are around in London at lunchtime on Wednesday, it'd be great to meet up. Great to see you. If you are a YouTube member on this channel or you are a patron, you are very much invited, and I'll let you know where it is. And we might see other people. Graham, myself from Vertigo. Oh, sorry, mate. Jesus. sorry. The thing is, fear of heights is selected for because it lacks off what fast it was. Heights don't scare me. It's the falling with the problem with, says Russell. And Jeannie says farewell, folks. I'm going to say that as well. So thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.